The automatic doors of LAX airport slid open with a whisper, welcoming Olivia Carter into the chaotic symphony of rushing travelers, rolling suitcases, and distant boarding announcements. The scent of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the sterile chill of air conditioning as she stepped inside, her designer heels clicking softly against the polished floor. Olivia was a woman who commanded respect, not through loud proclamations or ostentatious displays of wealth, but through an air of quiet authority. Dressed in a tailored navy coat draped over a silk blouse, she moved with the ease of someone accustomed to first-class lounges and private boardrooms. Her fingers tightened around the handle of her leather suitcase as she approached the priority check-in counter. This was supposed to be a seamless process, a routine step before boarding the flight that would take her to the final negotiation of a multi-million-dollar acquisition, the culmination of years of work, sacrifice, and strategic maneuvering. But as she stepped up to the counter, she saw the smirk. The young man behind the desk, his name tag reading Jason Walker, didn't even attempt to mask the condescension in his gaze. It was subtle but unmistakable, the way his eyes flicked over her, his smirk twitching at the corner of his mouth, as if she were an anomaly, a disruption in his perception of what a first-class passenger should look like. Olivia had seen it before. She knew this game. "Good morning," she said, sliding her passport and ticket across the counter, her voice smooth and composed. Jason took the documents with deliberate slowness, barely glancing at them before cocking an eyebrow. "This line is for priority check-in," he said, enunciating the words as if explaining them to a child. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" Olivia held his gaze, unflinching. "Quite sure," she replied, her smile not faltering. Jason hummed, flipping open her passport with exaggerated care. This doesn't seem right." A long, deliberate pause as he tapped at his keyboard, his fingers moving slower than necessary. Around them, other passengers were checked in swiftly, their interactions lasting no more than a minute. But Olivia was made to wait. Another pause. Then Jason leaned back, sighing theatrically. "I'm sorry, but this ticket doesn't look valid. Are you sure you booked it through the airline?" The sheer audacity of the question was almost amusing. Olivia exhaled through her nose, steadying the flicker of irritation curling at the edges of her patience. She had no intention of creating a scene, but she also had no intention of being dismissed. "Yes," she said evenly. "I booked it directly. Perhaps you should double-check." Jason didn't even try to hide his smirk now. He tapped furiously at the keyboard, then leaned forward, lowering his voice just enough to feign discretion. "You know, it's not uncommon for people to mistake their ticket class. Happens all the time. A polite way of saying you don't belong here." Olivia's grip tightened on her suitcase handle. Years of navigating spaces where she was not expected to belong had trained her in restraint. She would not raise her voice. She would not demand. She would simply hold him accountable. "I'd suggest," she said, her tone smooth but carrying an undeniable weight, "that you be very sure about how you proceed next." Jason blinked. For the first time, his smirk faltered. But then, as if realizing he was being challenged, he straightened and gestured toward a nearby security guard. "I'm going to need to verify this with management," he announced loudly, making sure the passengers nearby could hear. Olivia didn't move, didn't flinch. Instead, she reached into her coat pocket, retrieving her phone. One call, a single number dialed. The response was immediate. "It's me," she said, her voice low but firm. "We have a situation." She ended the call, slipping the phone back in her pocket as she met Jason's gaze once more. He had no idea what he had just set in motion. Jason Walker had played this game before. He had learned early on that power at the airport didn't come from money. It came from perception, and perception was something he could manipulate. He hadn't outright refused her check-in. Not yet. Instead, he leaned into the role of a dedicated employee, furrowing his brow as he tapped at his keyboard with exaggerated slowness. His eyes flicked up to her every few seconds, amusement dancing behind his false concern. Olivia remained still. She had patience when it counted. Finally, Jason sighed dramatically. "Well," he said, shaking his head, "this is odd." Olivia raised an eyebrow. What exactly is odd? Jason clicked his tongue, tilting his head slightly. Your ticket isn't pulling up quite right. Maybe a system error. Happens sometimes. A blatant lie. Olivia knew airline systems well. If there was an actual issue, he would have flagged it immediately. This was a stall, an attempt to waste her time, to test her patience. She refused to play. I see, she said coolly. Then check again. Jason grinned, as if she had fallen right into his trap. He tapped another few keys, this time without even looking at the screen, then let out a long breath. I might have to call someone, he mused, just to confirm a few things. Olivia kept her expression neutral. By all means. Jason's smirk faltered just slightly at her unwavering tone, but he quickly recovered. He turned away, pressing a single button on his phone, a meaningless gesture, considering Olivia could see the screen and nothing had changed. Then, after a long, unnecessary pause, he straightened and gestured toward a nearby security guard. Olivia didn't react, but she noted the way his smirk widened just a little. This was the moment he had been waiting for. The security guard approached, his presence adding an extra layer of scrutiny. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and moved with the casual authority of someone who was used to being obeyed. Jason leaned toward him, lowering his voice just enough that it seemed confidential, but not so much that Olivia couldn't hear. "We got a little issue," Jason said smoothly, casting a quick glance at her. "Passenger's ticket isn't coming up in the system. Thought it might be best to have someone verify." The guard's posture shifted slightly, his eyes flickering to Olivia with mild suspicion. Olivia could see it happening in real time. Jason feeding him a narrative, subtly twisting reality just enough to cast doubt. The guard turned to her. "Ma'am, do you have proof of purchase?" Olivia tilted her head. The ticket in his hand is proof of purchase. Jason chuckled under his breath, shaking his head as if to say, "See what I'm dealing with?" "I'm sure it's just a mix-up," he said lightly, "but we have protocols." Olivia exhaled slowly. The crowd behind her had started paying attention now. Whispers moved through the line, subtle but present. "A familiartun." But Olivia wasn't confused. She was watching Jason very carefully now, studying him in the same way she studied business rivals before taking them apart, piece by piece. And Jason had no idea he was about to be dismantled.